Hello, I am Celia Martínez Sanz, the principal of Malala's Public Early Childhood and Primary School, located in Guadalupe, the region of Murcia. Our school is small, with 2 classes per grade, and each class with approximately 25 students. The school's educational community is composed of working and middle-class families, and around 10% of our students are immigrants coming mainly from North Africa and Ukraine. In addition, in our center, there are 2 children with autism and 5 with dyslexia. Despite challenges, we are very proud to say that our absenteeism and school dropout rates are very low. Also, when it comes to parents' community, there is quite active involvement in the AMPA, though less engagement from the part of the immigrants' parents. Now, our school is committed to democratic values, teaching inclusion, equity, respect, and empowerment. Recently, we have received 50 tablets from the public administration, and we are open to innovation and uses of digital technologies in the classroom, while being aware of the need to use them carefully and responsively and listening to the students' parents with very different visions of digital education. I have also been ordered to use this prompt in AI and to implement the measures given. From the development plan that ChatGPT created, I chose 5 fundamental measures. First of all, I consider fundamental point 2, Parent Advisory Group on Digital Education. In fact, creating a space where to explain the use of technology at school to a more representative group of parents, including immigrants, in their own language while listening to their concerns, would build trust in technological use as well as a closer community attending to language diversity. This part is actually supported by the following articles. The actors involved are the students' families and the school teachers and the principal, fostering a relationship of trust between all of them. Secondly, I chose point 4, digital literacy and citizenship modules. In fact, digital competency is one of the competencies to achieve in primary school according to the region of Murcia's decree. This competency implies the healthy and critical use of technologies. It is supported by the legislation, and the relationship affected is the teacher-students one, as the actors are the students and their teachers who have been trained in these topics. Thirdly, I chose Tech-Free Fridays and Nature-Inspired Learning Days, as it is important to learn how to use technology but without creating dependence and doing other non-digital hands-on activities outdoors. This is supported as well by the legislation, and the relationship and actors affected are the same than in the previous point. The next measure chosen is inclusive tablet integration strategy. The use of technologies can be supportive and inclusive. In many apps, we can change the language, the font, or size of the letter, and it can provide visual support as well. This is supported by the decrees, and it implies the relation of students with special educational needs and technology. The main actors implied are therefore those children. Finally, I consider the intercultural and family engagement weeks important. To establish a closer community, knowing about other families' culture involving the parents is crucial. This involves the relationship between the different actors participating, which are the families, the students, and the school staff. It is supported also by the law. Though ChatGPT gave me some appropriate measures for my school, it didn't consider some educational diversity parts, like the possible lack of digital devices for students with educational needs or for the intercultural week's presentations. It didn't address either the relationship between the working class families and the medium class families, or between the possible different religions in a specific way. If I were the principal, the 5 main points of my program related to improving the information my community would receive about digital transformation would be the following. First, I would create face-to-face meetings with the option to connect online, showing and explaining the use of the digital tools at school and some activities. This would be done in the different languages spoken by the families and in different schedules so that everyone can come no matter their job. Second, we would create paper pamphlets about some technological activities in our program, also in different languages, for families who prefer reading on paper or don't have access to digital tools or the internet. Third, we would also design a website in which we would upload some of our activities done in class regarding digital transformation with information in diverse languages. For even more involved technology parents, we would also create a social media account with the same informational objective and the use of different languages. Obviously, we would be very careful with the minors' images on the internet. Finally, we could develop competency workshop sessions in which parents would go around different digital projects done by children, and this would explain them in their native language. One of the key organizations in the school is the AMPA. These points are linked to the relationship between the school staff and the diversity of languages in the AMPA, ensuring that parents from different linguistic backgrounds can understand the information given. They also are associated with the relationship between the families in the AMPA and their different perspectives regarding digital transformation and the school teachers and activities, including technologies. These points reflect the essential elements of my leadership style, transformational leadership. In fact, I believe this motivates the school community to be involved and engaged in activities, and it creates a shared vision for our school improvement where everyone is involved and fosters professional development and growth, taking into account the importance of digital competence and digital transformation for change nowadays. Despite some first educational experiences, like with Pedro Ponce de León, who in the 16th century taught a group of 12 deaf children how to speak, read, and write with his oral method, children with disabilities were hidden in the shadows and sent to healthcare institutions for many years. Little by little, associations like ONCE in 1938 were created, and these students started to go to special schools established by the state with the public educational law in 1945. But around the 1970s, the perspective changed, and normalization of these children let them pass from invisibility to visibility, with the General Law of Education, which proposes for the first time the creation of special education classrooms in ordinary centers. This vision of integration was maintained for 20 years until LOCSE arrived in 1990. In this law, teaching is projected for everyone, and it is the start of comprehensive and inclusive educational policies, with measures like curricular adaptations. And this new view progressed with the law in 2006, adopting new principles to respond to the educational system's needs, and with the LOMCE in 2013. In fact, this law wants to improve the quality of education without making any kind of exclusion, through equity. It seeks an education in respect and equal rights and opportunities between men and women, and in non-discrimination against people with disabilities. It establishes the elaboration of the diversity care plan as well, and includes in the students with special educational needs the ones with high intellectual abilities. Nowadays, the example of functional diversity in a public primary school would be the inclusion of a child with intellectual disabilities in the same classroom as the other children. However, private schools often have more freedom in some diversity aspects, such as gender and religion. In fact, there are schools only for girls or only for boys, which differentiate their pupils by gender, and other schools which praise a unique religion, like Catholic schools, quite common in Spain and in the region of Murcia. To start, I believe that I have been a hardworking student who has tried to be involved in every assignment as well as present and participative in class. However, as many tasks were sent from Monday to Tuesday, it was sometimes hard for me to give my best due to lack of time, and I often finished with the feeling that I could have done more or better with more days. I would therefore give myself an 8 out of 10. Then, on the one hand, the crucial idea about our school organization that I have learned in this course is the complexity of it, taking into account all the different debates and perspectives around ideas such as religion at school, having or not having homework, evaluating or not through numeric marks. It is difficult to deal with things like centralized evaluations at a national or at a regional level, because they don't depend on the teacher's views or the school itself. On the other hand, before this course, I couldn't imagine all the different types of timetables existing and the difficulty of creating them in order to maintain the compulsory hours for each subject while maintaining not very long classes to foster attention, or dividing the classes in small groups to facilitate the teaching and learning process. When it comes to the most crucial idea about attention to diversity learned in this course, I would say it is the fact that there are many different types of diversity in the classroom, and that even two children with the same disability, for example, can be and need completely different responses. Now I am more aware of the importance of attending diversity, because we have seen that early detection and attention is of paramount importance to be able to respond to those students' educational needs correctly and give them the opportunity to develop their abilities in their best ways possible. Attending diversity is also necessary not only for children with specific educational needs, but for everyone, in order to create an inclusive and respectful society. Preparing this video, I have learned how AI can be really helpful when we have a challenge we don't know how to approach or solve. In fact, I didn't consider many of the ideas it gave me before the conversation. Also, I have developed further knowledge in school organization, taking into account the actors, the organizations, and the relationships between all of them in an educational community, as well as the different ways to organize and communicate information to bring together this community. Regarding students' diversity, searching in the diversity legislative documents and revising the changes in educational laws from segregation to inclusion has also helped me consolidate my knowledge. So this is the end of my final exam. Thank you so much, and I hope you liked it.